Yellow makes me sad, I think. That's interesting. You know what makes me sad?
You do! Maybe we should chug on over to Mamby-Pamby land, where maybe we can find some self-confidence for you jackwagon!
Oh, this is Tim. This is your Giant Straight Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC. You know, when the show starts off like that, it can't be good. We're going to be talking about the Giants, and we're going to do a training camp preview show. Dun, dun, dun. Because we got to go over the roster. We got to see what we have. Training camp's in a couple days. I'll be at training camp. I got a bunch of tickets, so I don't know what days I'll be out there yet, but I got tickets for every day. So I'll have to make a decision on the days I want to go out there, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be spectacular. So make sure you're there. I have to laugh because I was on Twitter, and I know that's never a good thing. I should stay off Twitter, and I really should, because you want to know why?
This sucks, and it's horseshit. But I'm too polite to say anything because I'm a class act.
Because I am a class act. But sometimes you just have to call out stupidity, and that was the early part of the introduction. Fireside Giants put out a fact or fiction. Malik Neighbors will break OBJ's single-season franchise receiving record of 1,305 yards. Well, any Giant fan knows that that's OBJ's rookie season. So I was just nice enough to point out to them, I'm going to say false because Cruz had 1,536 yards in 2011. But hey, this is why we have been voted the dumbest fan base. And evidently they didn't like that too much. So they came back and told me, asked me why I was being so aggressive. That's aggressive. And of course, my response was, you have to be Gen Z or Gen Y, because if you think that's aggressive, we have a lot of problems. Listen, you're going to come off as an expert. You want to come off as you know everything about Giants. You want to come off that you are the place to go for information about Giants, all things New York football Giants. Well, you know what you should do? You should probably get your facts right. That's like when people, come at me about history of Giants and they tell me part of the story, then I tell them the other part, and then they're like, "Oh well, you're just mean." Well, no, not really. I'm just fucking telling you the truth because we've said it before. Because I love this quote.
Worry about your own game. Plenty there to keep you busy.
That wasn't the speed. That wasn't what I want. But I love this one.
Yellow makes me sad, I think.
That's interesting. You know what makes me sad? You do! Maybe we should chug on over to Mamby-Pamby land, where maybe we can find some self-confidence for you jackwagon!
So let's run off all to Mamby-Pamby land, and let's talk about the New York football Giants going into the 2024 season. I have some angst about this season, and not just because of watching Hard Knocks, because that just makes things even worse. But I have angst in regards to the fact that this roster, the way it's constructed, the way we have really put everything together. And I know there was limitations with the salary cap. There's limitations with the Brian Burns trade. There's limitations of things that you can fix on a roster, but the limitations should have been limited because you're going into year 3 of the Joe Shane, Brian Dable regime. But I can't literally say that this roster is better. I really can't. And I want to look at it positionally first, and and in some regards, I want to look at it in what I fear is going to be the biggest issues on this roster. And I think the biggest issue is going to be the defensive backfield. You take the likes of Banks, who should be fine, Cordell Flott, Hawkins, what you got, Holmes out there, Alex Johnson, David Long, not David Long, the linebacker who we should have signed, Nick McLeod. You drafted Mr. Phillips. You still have Aaron Robinson on this team, shockingly enough. You have Thomas Oliver, Jalen Mills, Elijah Riley. I mean, I'm not filled with confidence in that in the defensive back secondary in reference to the corners. Outside of Banks, and you have to hope that Banks does not have that sophomore slump. You have to hope that Banks can step up into that next level. You got to hope that Banks is going to be enjoy playing more in a Tampa 2 bend not break defense and not more of the attacking style defensive wink. Teams are going to go after him, so you have to hope that he's up for the task, and I think he's going to be. But after that, everything's a question mark. CB2 is a question mark. Your slot corner is a question mark. Your third corner is a question mark. There's just a room full of question marks, and people are they're going, well, we should just go out there and sign a player. We don't have the cap space. We don't have the money. We're going to be in the negatives, high negative 20s, if not in the 30s. When the rule of 51 breaks, but we're not going to talk about that because nobody wants to listen to that except for the people that listen to this channel. So maybe we'll talk about it later. But you look at that defensive backfield, you have to cringe a little bit in reference to the corners. It could get scary, and it could get, if the pass rush doesn't get there, it's going to get bad quick. And I also have to refer to the safety position. You still have only Dane Belton, Tyler Nubin. You have Owens, you have Pinnock, and you have Isaiah Simmons, who's going to be that slash linebacker. It's funny. Everyone's relying on the likes of Daniel Jones to come in here and really turn everything around. The same thing with Drew Lock. But everyone's relying so much on Isaiah Simmons to be this special weapon. He couldn't be a special weapon in an attacking style defense for Wink. He couldn't be a special weapon over in Arizona, but all of a sudden in year 6, he's going to be that special weapon. There's a theme here, guys. Dane Belton shouldn't even be on this roster. Going into his 3rd year, everyone talks about the interceptions from Matthew Stafford. Those were gifted to him. They were thrown right at him. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that he was a trailer on like 5 consecutive touchdowns after that. Nobody wants to talk about he got benched in the Texan game 2 years ago because he doesn't know his assignments and didn't see the field again until the end of last year because of injuries. But don't worry, at 24 years old, going to his 3rd year, he's going to figure it out. Everything's just going to click. You're asking a lot of Tyler Nubin to come in. I remember Yusef Corker. He was going to come in and be the man. Undrafted free agent out of Kentucky. He was going to be the guy. Yeah, it turned out he wasn't. I'm not saying Nubin's not going to be the guy, but there are some deficiencies in his game, and he's got to step up as a rookie. Pinnock's coming off the injury, but I think Pinnock is a good player. Don't think he's great. Don't think he's an all-pro. I think he is a good player in this league, and that's a lot to have on your team. But you're going to rely on a good player and somebody else. That should strike fear in any Giant fan, because if that pass rush does not come in, if that pass rush does not go after and,
What's your assignment?
Kill the quarterback. Hit the tight end so hard his girlfriend dies. Kill everybody.
If you don't have that attacking style defense, if you don't have...
No, I don't want them to gain another yard.
You blitz all night.
The only problem is Shane Bowen only blitz about 20% of the time, and he likes to generate his rush with his 4 down linemen. So you are going to get scary. It could get scary quick if you have a quality quarterback, not like we have 3 in the division. I'm also counting Jaden Daniels in that mix. And you run this bend not break Tampa 2 style defense, and you have limited rush with coming out with 4 guys. It could get ugly, and it could get ugly fast. Speaking of fast, you had Saquon Barkley, of course, go over to your division rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. But don't worry, Joe Shane thought there was no one in this marketplace that's going to give him any money. So what do? You're going to go by, you are going to go by running back by committee. You go out and get Motor Singletary. I know everyone's so excited about Motor Singletary. I don't know, guys. Just don't see it. I think he's a good back. Is he going to be that every down back? Is he going to be that bell cow back? No, you're going to need some bangers along with it. And those bangers are going to be with Corbin, Eric Gray, mini quads. I met Eric Gray. I've seen Eric Gray play now. I don't see it. You're also going to rely on Dante Miller, the speedster out of South Carolina, who had some problems in his college career. So he's going to come in at 5'9", 200 pounds and be a wrecking ball. You got Tyrone Tracy Jr. I hope Tyrone Tracy Jr., for his sake, at 5'11", 210 pounds out of Purdue, is that missing link, is that key, because he's only played running back 1 year in college. He did play a little bit in high school. So it should be easy for him to make that next jump from 1 year at college running back into the pros without any problems, without any transition issues. So if you take a look at that defensive backfield outside of Singletary, there is no fear in anything. There is no fear. And then if you stay in the offensive backfield, you got to go, of course, with the quarterback situation. Great balls of fire. Tommy DeVito, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and Nathan, of course, is still on the roster. Nathan, I believe, of course, he's out of the Canadian Football League, so he's our best chance. You're hoping that what's interesting? Carolina, going into year 2 of their quarterback experiment, is concerned that they made a mistake already. We're going into year 6 and we're tripling down with Daniel Jones. We're tripling down on a 27-year-old quarterback coming off 2 neck injuries and an ACL, who's really not been productive outside of 1 or 2 games here and there. But we're going to rely on that. But don't worry, if Daniel Jones can't cut it, this is why I know we are just I just think Karate Kid.
Get him a body bag, Johnny! Yeah!
If we're in a body bag, man, if something happens to Daniel Jones and we have to rely on Drew Lock, or if something happens to Drew Lock and we got to rely on Daniel Jones, we're in a lot of trouble. You have two quarterbacks taken out of the same draft, two quarterbacks that really have never reached any heights of their own potential, and you're hoping in year 6 they figured out. You're hoping it turns into a Tommy Maddox, and you catch that one season wonder. You have a lot of hope. There's hopium, as Zach likes to say, and that hopium is a dangerous drug. But don't worry, we got the likes of Tommy DeVito, who got benched after that horror. I kept telling people that before it even happened. I said the Saints game is going to be bad. I said he's going to be exposed in the Saints game because it's an actual defense. And all of our fears came true. So our if we take a look at our backfield, offensive backfield, you're gonna have the likes of DeVito, you're gonna have the likes of these quarterbacks and these running backs. Then we roll over into the tight end position. Tight end position is going to be Bellinger, is going to be Cager. You have what's his name? Tyler. I think Tyler Jackson's still on the roster. We got the big kid out of Penn State who's already hurt. So we gotta look at that as well. I mean, it's Theo Johnson. I couldn't think of his name for a second. He's already on the physically unable to perform list. We don't even know what that injury is, but don't worry, that should be fine. How do I miss Walla 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 already? I really do miss Walla 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 already, but that's okay. We're gonna be all right. We're gonna be okay because that skill possession list on those in those areas we should be fine. We should be okay. We should be good in the wide receiver position. I am curious to see some of these guys that we brought in if they can make this team. They're already talking about moving on from Allen Robinson III. Love her. You have Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, of course. You got Allen Robinson III. You got my neighbors. We got Isaiah McKenzie, who we should have probably had like 2 years ago, not now. You got Jalen Hyatt that you hope is going to make that big step up. You got Dennis Houston. You got Isaiah Hodgins. You got Bryce Ford Wheaton still on this roster as well. You got a bunch of guys that you do have a quality position group at wide receiver, but it's going to take some hopium again, Zach, and you have to take some time to maturate this position because you are going to be relying on a second-year player in Hyatt. You are going to be relying on a first-year player in Neighbors. You have to hope that Darius Slayton can continue to be who he is. You got to hope that you got to hope you find a third and a fourth guy. But there's a good enough amount of guys on this roster to go through that. The other thing that I worry about specifically is going to be the linebacking core. Because you literally had Shane Bowen come out and say, I love it because Joe Shane is just so in love with Brian Burns. He talks to this is going off Hard Knocks. This isn't me, guys. I'm not just pontificating about this. You go off with our old buddy Brian Dable. Shane asks if you could have one position, one guy in this group, any guy, any position, what would you want? And he goes, offensive lineman. And then Shane goes, what about Brian Burns? He asked Shane Bowen, what do you need to run your defense? First thing he says out of his head, 2 quality inside linebackers. Joe Shane, what about Brian Burns? I think there's a theme there, Joe. You're going to have to rely on the likes of Darren, Leave It to Beavers, Carter Coughlin. You have Johnson on this. McFadden is still on this team as well, of course, and Bobby Okereke. Okereke is your one constant. McFadden, you still have to have some concerns about. I believe he had the highest missed tackle percentage in the league. Got benched in for a little bit. Good player, good guy. Does have a tendency to disappear. 6'2", 232 pounds. Quality guy. But we have to see that he can continue to progress and grow. We don't need another Tate Crowder in this role. Then behind those two, it's all basically just garbage. Garbage in, garbage out. So we need to be concerned about that position as well. Your outside linebackers and quasi-defensive ends, you should be good. You got Boogie Basham still on the team, Brian Burns. You got Fox. You got Azeez Ojulari if you can ever stay healthy. You got Kayvon Thibodeau, the Burns 2.0. So you have enough guys in your quasi-outside linebacker positions, but 2 of those guys are going to be down linemen basically in Burns and Thibodeau. I don't see them, either one of them, having the true skill set to do what needs to be done in the Shane Bowen defense. But they're also going to be your pass rush because you're going to rush 4 guys. So I'm gonna take Thibodeau and Burns out of that group, put them in the defensive end. Then you take a look at your outside linebackers. Great balls of fire. Who's gonna be there? Because neither Burns or Thibodeau are great at holding their assignment, maintaining their edge, and stopping the run. So you're going to need some quality outside linebackers to help them. Yeah, you're going to bring in the rookie and say, oh, we got the rookies. No, guys. No. Then we got to take a look at the defensive line or the defensive tackle position. Anytime you start with Dexter Lawrence, you should be fine. I'm still a fan of DJ Davidson. You got, you brought in a couple other guys, which you got Home in there too. You still got the Nacho Man. You got Phillips in there as well. You got Jordan Riley. So defensive line position, you're going to be fine. You're going to be good. And then you got to go into the offensive line itself. I know you brought some guys in, but like I said, John Runyon Jr. scares the hell out of me. They were already replacing him in Green Bay during the season last year into the playoffs. He rotated positionally with a rookie because they knew they were getting rid of him. And we gave him more money because of the whole Jets situation. And like I said, scouting reports are all the same on him. More than adequate pass blocker. He's not much of a run blocker. He's not much of an athlete. Don't pull the guard because he has bad footwork and has a tendency to trip over his own feet. That's not a recipe for disaster. But don't worry, we gave him a lot of money to play with us. You're still going to hope the likes of guys from a couple of years ago are going to come in and fill some things out and do some things. I'm still very worried about this offense. I'm still worried about this position. Of course, Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal. Evan Neal is going to be that starter at tackle he needs to be at 6'7", 340 pounds. You got to give him that last shot at 23 years old. You can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. But then the problem is you basically have journeymen and guys behind them that you're going to have massive concerns about. So even though you went out and got what's his name, Elmore, I can't remember say his name. You still have Joshua Zudo. You still have McKeithen. You got guys that need to prove themselves. That they could be every down lineman. They could be backup linemen. So you're gonna have to find some continuity in this camp. So that's going to be a position battle to watch as well. I'm not even going to get on special teams because, hopefully Graham Gano comes back at full strength and we have the Scottish Hammer. I'm not even going to get into that. But if you take a look at like I said, if you take a look at this positionally, I think you're really only set at wide receiver, defensive tackle, and defensive end. And even the defensive end position, you have some issues, like I said, because you have two guys that are not adept at playing the run from the defensive end position. So you better have some strong quality outside linebackers. Besides that, Giants have been voted the 31st worst roster in the league. Only that above Carolina, which I find interesting because Carolina only went that one position after they traded Brian Burns. It's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be interesting. We're going to get back in the swing of things and doing videos. And as always, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to ring that bell because you want to know why. That'll be awesome.